Billy, how you doing tonight?
Hey, Joe, how are you?
Good. Hey, there seems to be an evolution of a guy as he studies film, learns how to watch film. Usually, young guys are more into just watching themselves and figuring out what they need to do to, they sink or swim. Has that gotten to the point yet where he is watching film on other people and watching film on certain guys and studying them, his opponents, different guys he may get matched up to? Has he hit that evolution yet, or is he still in the early stages where he's watching himself or watching what his teammates are doing, stuff like that?
No, I mean, I can't speak, Joe, for what it was in the past, but I know when, going into games and stuff, even, day before games, he'll grab me and say, hey, what's a good game for me to watch? What should I be looking for? So he definitely watches games. He watches film besides the film that we show the team, when we're meeting as a team, preparation before games, shoot arounds, those kind of things. He's doing stuff on his own. Now, how much he did of that in the past, I never really got to him on that. But he does watch games.
Is that a skill, and how important do you think that is for guys? It seems a lot of vets, Jimmy Butler comes to mind, was really a big film buff, and the importance of film and learning how to watch film, learning how to watch different guys. Where do you rank that as far as the development of a player from your average guy to an all-star to elite?
Oh, I think it's huge. Even talking to Patrick Williams about it as he has gotten, this early part of his rookie year playing against these guys, being able to watch film is critical. The one guy that, even Westbrook, he watched a lot. Chris Paul was like nuts. He watches every single game and watches different things. I mean, he's on it very, very well. I think all those elite guys, as they're looking to gain any kind of advantage they can, whether it's figuring out play calls or what may be coming or ATOs, those kind of things, those elite guys are on it. So I do think it's critical. I think it's really, really important. I've always said to guys that, like, the job is just not when you're in the building and we're practicing or doing a shoot around, but like, what are you doing in your free time? Like, how committed are you to your craft? And I think those guys, I know even last year, Chris Paul would have guys come over, his place, and they'd watch film together. So I think, that's really the best way to learn and to get better. But to your point, they got to understand what they should be looking for and what they need to be watching. And those guys will ask questions along those lines. But I do think it's critically important to guys' development and growth, knowing the league and knowing who they're playing against and what may be coming.
Thanks, Billy.
You're welcome.
Law Murray, go ahead.
Good evening, Billy. This is Law Murray in Los Angeles. You had two teams here. Well, when it comes to your team, there's a lot of pick and roll on both sides. You use a lot of pick and roll, but both the Clippers and the Bulls have struggled defending it this season. Ty's discussed that quite a bit in the last couple of weeks. And I just want to know what your perspective was in terms of the difficulty of defending the pick and roll, particularly this season.
Well, I do think, especially for us having a younger team and new coaching staff coming in, some of it's probably a lot different for them. Ty's obviously was there last year with Doc, but, how much he's changed, what they're doing defensively, I don't know. Ty could probably be the better person to answer that. But I think every pick and roll is always, you got to look at the two players in the pick and roll. Sometimes there's a shooter, sometimes there's a roller. You got guys that can play in the pocket and make plays from the pocket. There's like different kind of combinations of it. And the biggest thing is how well you can control the ball. If that ball gets going wherever it wants to go with the level of players in this league, it's really, really hard to handle that because it opens up a lot of different options. And, guys have got to be really, really good on the ball, in terms of when to go under, when to go over, where there's a screen being set. Do they keep it on one side of the floor and keep it pushed or iced or, on a specific side? There's a lot to go into it. And players have gotten smarter. I think that, probably when drop coverage came in, a lot of teams, a lot of players needed to learn how to play against it. I think players have gotten more accustomed to dealing with that. You bring coverages up higher. You're talking about dealing with more rotations and stuff. So, there's a lot of different ways to play it, based on personnel. But at the same point, too, it's probably one of the more difficult things to guard because of the level of players.
Jamie, go ahead.
Hi, Coach. Jamie Maggio with the Clippers broadcast. Just wondering, in terms of Zach Lavine's statistics this year, he's having his is the best numbers of his career. Can you speak to his development and what he's done to take his game to the next level?
Yeah, it's hard for me to comment about last year because I wasn't here, but I would say that he scored a lot last year too. I think one of the things that I've talked to him about that he's really coming from him, is I think that he has not been in winning situations, and he really wants to figure out how he can impact winning, how he can impact the others around him. What does that entail? What kind of responsibility and accountability does he have to that? I think he's looking at a bigger picture, where not only can he score, but, can he be a two-way player? Can he play on both ends of the floor? Can he facilitate and generate good shots for other guys? But I do feel that there's a drive and an eagerness from him to continue to grow and develop and improve. And, he's still relatively young in a lot of ways. And, I think the hard part for him, it's almost like it's been a rookie year every year for him, because anytime you're bringing in a new coach, it's kind of like you're starting over. You're learning a new system, style, terminology, and there hasn't been a lot of continuity for him. So I think he's trying to figure out, how he can impact winning. And, it's been a process for him, but it's a process that I think he's committed to and he's working hard at.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jamal, go ahead.
Yeah, Billy, like you said, you weren't here last year, but Zach was, I think, very open last year about like wanting to get to the All-Star game and that kind of being a goal for him. He's acknowledged this year that would be nice, but has not maybe been as open about it. Have you gotten a sense at all of what that may mean to him, or if that's something that's important to him?
Again, he's been very, very open with me and very, very honest with me, just in terms of his career, and the track it's been on and the different situations he's been, involved in. And, I think for him, I think he understands at this point in time of his career that individual accolades come when the team does really well. And I think when your team does well, players get really, really recognized. And certainly if our team can continue to grow and develop and improve and get better and be very, very competitive and, be in a situation where we're winning more, he's going to get recognized for those things. And I think he is aware of that. I've never gotten the impression from Zach at all, for a guy that scores the ball the way he does, he's incredibly unselfish. He's a really good team guy. Guys on a team like him. I do think that one of the things he's really working on, as part of his growth is, he wants to be accountable to the guys and to the game before he can start holding others accountable. And I think he's really worked on that. So I think that's kind of been his focus more so than, hey, I want to make the All-Star game, or, hey, this would be really cool. I think if it happened, certainly it would be great for him and to be recognized, as an All-Star. I mean, it's an incredible honor. But at the same point, I don't think it's the driving force for him. I think he wants to learn and grow into a leader and wants to be a guy that I think the players on the team will look at, as somebody like, okay, you know what, we've got to play to this standard because Zach's at this level. And not only offensively, because he's so gifted scoring, but the other facets of the game. I know he wants to, do a better job at taking care of the basketball. I think he wants to do a better job being a two-way player on the defensive end of the floor. I think he wants to do a better job facilitating and generating shots for others. I think when you go into, and I've talked to him about this, I think when you go into games predetermining how you're going to play, it's not a real good recipe for success. I think you got to read the game and take what the game gives you. And the biggest thing for him is, like I've told him, you have to be aggressive in order to make the right play. If you're trying to predetermine what you're going to do, you're never going to be able to read the defense. And the challenge is now you got to really make split second decisions, and that's really difficult to do. But I think for him, I have not gotten any sense that like that's a real priority for him, at least in my conversations with him.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
We'll try to get through these next four, and that'll be it. Sam Smith, go ahead.
Bill, you mentioned earlier, a week ago, about the schedule coming up, and everybody's, got difficulties. I think after this weekend, it's every other day or a couple of back-to-backs. It seems like the minutes for Zach and Thad have been starting to creep up a little bit. And obviously you have so many guys out, I'm not sure exactly what you can do, but is that a concern going forward? And how do you try to address that?
For me, it is. I think in certain games, Gaff's been in a little bit of foul trouble, so we've kind of extended Thad's minutes a little bit more. I thought the last game against New Orleans, we really kept his minutes pretty low in that first half, which allowed us to extend him a little bit more in that second half. So I thought his minutes were pretty good. The one guy's minutes that, really were up there just because we put him on Ingram was Garrett. He, I think, was up around 36. And, I check in with those guys, daily. I trust them. There's certain things that they have to do in practice where they may need to use their mind more than they may need to use their body. But with the guys that we do have out, yeah, I mean, I get concerned about, getting it up there too high. I think they'll be able to do that from game to game. But, I check with those guys. I can kind of tell maybe when they need a break, a little bit, but they're pretty competitive. And, there's been no signs from, what I've been able to see that, they're not in a great place physically. They're okay, but it's not so much one game or this game. To your point, it's the duration of the next 10 to 12 games. What do those minutes look like? So yeah, I am, somewhat concerned about that to see how they can hold up. But as long as they're telling me they're feeling okay, I'm going to trust, what kind of feedback I'm getting from them, whether it's the day of the game or practices and those kind of things. But I don't think you want to have their minutes so high where you're not getting a productive player. They may be available to play, but they may not be as productive. And that's the biggest thing is, can we keep the production of those guys, those veteran guys, at a really good level, and still obviously manage the minutes?
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Chuck, go ahead.
Billy, I have a question based on what happened the other night with setting a franchise record for made threes and the influence of analytics. Do you sense where the game is at today will continue to flow with three-point shooting, or do you think that the mid-range game still has a place in the NBA?
Oh, I think the mid-range game has a place in the NBA. I mean, I think if you look at the fact that a lot of times, coming down the stretch of games, whether it's a 1-point game or a 2-point game, any coach is going to take a good mid-range pull-up, jump shot, because you're looking to put points, on the board. I do think there's a place. I think you're starting to see, a lot more guards in drop coverages, develop a little bit of a floater game and a runner game around the basket. That's been kind of something that maybe a lot of guys haven't worked on in the past and now they're working on. But I do think there's a place for it. I think the other thing that's happening too is because of the numbers of threes that are going up at a record pace year in and year out, not all these threes are created equal, and a lot of times, highly contested threes above the break, in certain situations with certain players can be the same or the equivalent to a non-paint two. I think the one thing that, when you look at the non-paint two, a lot of people think, it's just that mid-range jump shot. A lot of times it's those shots inside the lane, but I think players have gotten better and better at being able to finish those plays at a much higher level than they maybe had in the past.
Okay, we got two more, Coach. Tomer, go ahead.
Hey, Coach. Tomer Zarli over in Los Angeles. I'm just curious. You coached PG. Obviously, he's not playing today, but you coached him during his best year of his career in OKC. And obviously, he suffered through the shoulder injuries late in that season, and that affected last season. What have you seen? What did you learn from him during that 1 year you had him, and I guess, or the 2 years, excuse me. What have you seen from him this year? He's shooting 50, 40, 90, playing terrific defense. What have you seen from him this year?
No, he's great. He's a great guy. He's really bright and smart. He's incredibly unselfish, as a guy that, gets 25 a game. He never wants plays run for him. He wants to get it in the flow of the offense. I think the unfortunate part for him is I don't think that he's really been totally healthy the last couple of years, and it probably started with us. He was at least in the MVP conversation going into the All-Star break, his last year, I think, with us, or I think that's when it was. And, he had both shoulders injured. He was playing on two shoulders that obviously had to have surgery. He missed all training camp last year. Their team is trying to find chemistry and, a rhythm, and they've got guys in and out. I think that was hard. But I think when he's healthy, he's obviously elite because he plays both ends of the floor. He's very, very unselfish. I felt bad for him because it was I think the first game out of the All-Star break that he hurt his other shoulder. And to be honest with you, he was not the same player, the last 27 games, and we probably were not the same team, because of it. But I give him credit. He lined up and played every night, never said a word about it, never talked about it. I think people were probably a little bit surprised when the year ended, the fact that he had to have surgery on both shoulders. I think that speaks to his toughness and competitiveness of wanting to play. But I really, really enjoyed my time with him. And, he's a really good guy and he's a great player. I think when he's healthy, I think the other thing that's incredible too is, the leg injury that he had, to be able to come back from that and still play at the level he's played, that's been pretty impressive.
Thanks, Coach.
Yep.
Last question, Andrew, go ahead.
Hey, Billy, it's Andrew from the LA Times. The Clippers had a practice this week. It's kind of a rare event. And Ty was saying that he attributes some of their slippage this year to the fact that they haven't had many opportunities to practice because of the compressed schedule and protocols. And I'm just curious on your end, kind of what the state of practice is like for your team. Like, how scarce really are opportunities to get in what you would consider a good quality workout, and maybe the challenges that poses for a staff?
Yeah, I mean, we had a couple situations where we had some games postponed, which gave us a little bit more time to practice. Here the last week or 10 days, it's been a little bit challenging. We've been able to get some work in. But yeah, I think when you have these condensed games where you're playing every other day or back-to-backs are thrown in there, I think for us, it's 17 games in 31 days. You can get a little bit of work in, but a lot of times we've been trying to do maybe a little bit of work after the game. It's hard to get a lot in and then try to do a little bit more in shoot-arounds. But I do think helping these guys recover physically and mentally for the next game is important. But yeah, it's hard, man. I agree with Ty. I mean, to stay sharp and to constantly build habits, those guys need reps. And sometimes it's hard to get, a lot of reps in, especially with high minute guys, because they need that day to kind of recover a little bit. But, you try to get some work in. It's not obviously very long, but whatever you can get in, I think is important to get in.